Here is a question that has tormented philosophers for 2,000 years. Why is it that in an argument between an intelligent person and a stupid one, the intelligent person almost always loses? Think about it. You present facts, logic, arguments, and your interlocutor simply repeats the same thing, louder. And in the end, you walk away with the feeling that you have lost. How is this even possible? I am going to show you why this happens. And, more importantly, what truly intelligent people do when they encounter militant stupidity. The Italian economist Carlo Cipolla, a professor at Berkeley, devoted an entire essay to this question: the basic laws of human stupidity. His first law states, "We always underestimate the number of stupid people in circulation. Always. You think you have seen it all, that nothing can surprise you anymore. And then a neighbor, a colleague, or a relative does something that makes you freeze in disbelief." But Cipolla went further. His third law is the most important. A stupid person, according to Cipolla, is one who causes harm to others without gaining any advantage for themselves, and sometimes even harming themselves in the process. Think about it. A scoundrel, at least, is understandable. They harm you for their own gain. You can deal with them. Their behavior is predictable, but a fool is unpredictable. In principle, they attack without cause, without a plan, without benefit. This is precisely why Cipolla called stupid people the most dangerous category, more dangerous than outright villains. And here is the first, unexpected turn. The German pastor and thinker Dietrich Bonhoeffer, while sitting in a Nazi prison in 1943, wrote letters in which he formulated a harsh thought: stupidity is more dangerous than malice. You can protest against evil, you can expose it, but a fool is impervious. Facts that contradict their belief are simply not perceived, and if the facts are irrefutable, they dismiss them as a mere coincidence. Bonhoeffer saw this with his own eyes. Educated, decent people around him were massively losing their capacity for critical thought. Moreover, and this is important, Bonhoeffer emphasized, stupidity is not related to intellect. It is not a brain problem. The smartest people can act stupidly, and a person without education can be remarkably wise. Stupidity, according to Bonhoeffer, is more of a moral and social issue. It is as if a person voluntarily renounces independent thinking. So, here is the good news. There is a specific strategy, not an abstract be above it all, but a set of real techniques, tested by both psychology and 2,000 years of philosophy. And we will start with a law that explains why your arguments have never worked. This law was formulated by an Italian programmer in 2013, and it will change your view of any argument forever. Brandolini's Law: Why Arguing is a Trap. In 2013, the Italian programmer Alberto Brandolini formulated a principle now known as Brandolini's Law, or the asymmetry of bullshit. It states, the amount of energy needed to refute nonsense is an order of magnitude greater than that needed to produce it. Consider this math. A stupid person needs 3 seconds to declare, the earth is flat, vaccines are a conspiracy, things were better before, because, well, just because. And for you to refute that, you need half an hour, research links, patience, and nerves of steel. And do you know what happens in the end? They say, but that's just your opinion. That's it. Half an hour of your life down the drain. This is not merely an observation. It is a structural feature of reality. It is always easier to destroy than to build. It is easier to say something stupid than to dismantle it. And intelligent people who understand this stop playing a game whose rules are stacked against them from the start. But wait. It gets even more interesting, because there is a scientific explanation for why a stupid person is so impenetrably confident in an argument. In 1999, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger from Cornell University published research that earned them an Ig Nobel Prize and then worldwide fame. They discovered that people with low competence in a particular area systematically overestimate their own abilities. The reason is simple and ingenious. To understand that you don't know something, you need the very knowledge that you lack. Incompetence robs a person of the ability to recognize their own incompetence. Interestingly, the research was prompted by a real-life incident. In 1995, a robber named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks in broad daylight in Pittsburgh, with his face smeared with lemon juice. He genuinely believed that lemon juice would make him invisible to the cameras. After all, it is used for invisible ink. When he was arrested, he was astonished. "But I put on the juice." Dunning read about this case and began to wonder, how often do we all, figuratively speaking, walk around with lemon juice on our faces? And here is the flip side of the effect, which is discussed less often. Competent people tend to underestimate themselves. They know how complex the subject is. They see all the nuances, and therefore they doubt. This creates a devilish combination. An ignoramus shouts with absolute certainty, while an expert speaks cautiously, with qualifications. And to an outside observer, the confident ignoramus appears more convincing. Bertrand Russell, the philosopher and Nobel laureate, formulated this as early as 1933. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wise people so full of doubts. Now combine everything. Brandolini's law says, refutation costs 10 times more than stupidity. The Dunning-Kruger effect says, a fool is physically incapable of realizing they are wrong. What do we get? An argument with a stupid person is a game you cannot possibly win. Not because you are not smart enough, but because winning this game is not part of the rules. There is a famous saying often attributed to Mark Twain. The exact authorship, I confess, is unconfirmed, but the point remains. Never argue with a fool. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. So what then? Stay silent and endure? No. And this is where it gets really interesting, because intelligent people have developed a whole arsenal of techniques. The first of these was practiced by a man whom the Athenian oracle named the wisest of all. The intelligent person's arsenal. 5 techniques that work. Technique 1. The Socratic method. Socrates, living in Athens in the 5th century BC, never told his interlocutor, "You are wrong," never lectured. He did something more cunning. He asked questions. Interesting, but how do you know that? What would happen if we applied your logic to this situation? How do you explain this contradiction here? The genius of the technique is that you shift the work onto the interlocutor. Remember Brandolini's law, refuting is costly, but asking a question is cheap. Let the person try to justify their own position. In the best case, they will think for the first time. In the worst, they will get tangled up in their own words in front of others. And you, all the while, have not uttered a single controversial word. You were simply interested. Incidentally, this very method ultimately cost Socrates his life. The Athenians sentenced him to a cup of hemlock, partly for exposing too many people as fools. So, dose it wisely. Technique 2. Strategic silence. Intelligent people understand. Not every statement requires a response. Silence is not weakness, nor is it agreement. It is a filter. Before you engage, ask yourself 3 questions. Will my answer change this person's mind? Is this person important in my life? Will this argument matter a year from now? If it's no, 3 times, you have just saved an hour of your life and a dose of nerve cells. Technique 3. The Grey Rock Technique. Psychologists recommend this technique for dealing with toxic and conflictual people you cannot simply walk away from, like colleagues or relatives. The essence: become as dull as a gray rock by the roadside. Respond neutrally, briefly, without emotion. Maybe. I see. We'll see. A conflictual person feeds on your reaction, indignation, proof, offense. By not giving a reaction, you deprive them of fuel. After a while, they will go looking for a more responsive victim. Technique 4. Agreement as a weapon. It sounds paradoxical, but sometimes the quickest way to end a pointless argument is to say, "You may be right." Note, you are not saying you are right. You are saying you may be right. This is pure truth. In a philosophical sense, almost anything is possible. But the arguer hears capitulation, calms down, and walks away. And you are left with your opinion, your nerves, and your time. A loss? No. Remember, in this game, victory was impossible anyway. You simply exited the game with minimal losses. Technique 5. Separate the person from the behavior. This is what distinguishes truly intelligent people. They do not attach lifelong labels to people. Remember Bonhoeffer? Stupidity is not a property of the brain, but a state. A person can be a brilliant engineer and spout nonsense about medicine. They can be insufferable in political debates and a golden support in times of trouble. An intelligent person reacts to specific behavior at a specific moment, rather than declaring war on the whole person. This, by the way, has saved countless families and decades-long friendships. And this is where a question arises that is more important than all the techniques combined. Why, even knowing all this, do we still lose our cool? Why do we perfectly understand that arguing is useless, and 5 minutes later, we are shouting? The answer lies deep in our brains, in a structure the size of an almond. And what it does to us in a fraction of a second explains almost every argument you have ever regretted. Why we lose our cool. Your brain against you. Deep within the temporal lobes of the brain lies the amygdala. This is an ancient alarm system, inherited from our distant ancestors. Its job is to react instantly to a threat, a predator, an enemy, danger. The problem is that the amygdala cannot distinguish a tiger in the bushes from a boar in a queue. To it, an insult, blatant lies, or flagrant injustice are also threats, and it triggers a battle mode. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, author of the famous book Emotional Intelligence, called this phenomenon amygdala hijack. During such a hijack, the emotional brain literally overrides the control of the rational one. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, self-control, and long-term planning, is temporarily pushed aside. Stress hormones are released into the blood, the heart pounds, the face flushes, and you say things you will regret. Ever noticed? The most precise, the most devastating arguments come to mind an hour after the argument, on the way home. The French even have a term for this. L'esprit de l'escalier. Staircase wit. This is no coincidence. During the argument, your rational cortex was partially offline. It returned to work, but the train had already left the station. And here is what is important to understand. A stupid or conflictual person, wittingly or unwittingly, is constantly pressing the button on your amygdala. Their absurd confidence, their refusal to hear facts, their rudeness, all these are triggers. And as long as you react automatically, they control you. Yes, the person you consider stupid is remotely controlling your nervous system. An unpleasant thought, isn't it? Intelligent people are not those who lack an amygdala. They are those who have learned to insert a pause between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist, wrote that between stimulus and response, there is always a space of freedom, the ability to choose your response. In the concentration camp, everything was taken from him: family, property, health. But they could not take away his choice of inner reaction. If Frankl could preserve that space in hell, then surely we can manage in a conversation with an impenetrable relative. In practice, it looks simple, almost laughably so. You feel yourself getting angry. Take a slow, deep breath. Physiology is on your side here. Slow breathing with an extended exhalation activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for calm. Count to 10. Incidentally, this advice is 2,000 years old. It was given to the Romans by Seneca, whom we will discuss in detail soon. Ask yourself, will this matter 10 years from now? The answer usually brings instant clarity. And here is another argument, purely pragmatic, for those who count time and money. Your attention and your energy are limited resources. Every minute spent on a pointless argument is a minute taken away from your family, your work, your health, your sleep. Intelligent people treat their attention as capital and do not invest it in knowingly unprofitable projects. Everything we have discussed, Cipolla, Brandolini, Dunning and Kruger, the amygdala, are discoveries of the last few decades. But here is the astonishing thing. 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers already knew all this. Without brain scanners, without experiments, without statistics. They built an entire system for dealing with difficult people, so precise that modern cognitive behavioral therapy grew directly out of it. We are talking about the Stoics, and their main secret can be summed up in one phrase. Stoicism, a system 2,000 years old. Here is the phrase. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, began his handbook with the words that some things are within our power, and others are not. Within our power are our judgments, our impulses, our reactions. Not within our power is everything else. The opinions of others, the actions of others, the stupidity of others. This is called the dichotomy of control, and it is the core of all Stoic philosophy. Applied to our topic, the stupidity of another person is not within your power. Period. You cannot make them smarter. You cannot force them to acknowledge facts. You cannot change their character. But your reaction to their stupidity is entirely within your power, and the Stoics advise shifting all attention from the first to the second. Speaking of Epictetus himself, he knew what he was talking about. Epictetus was born a slave. His master, according to ancient sources, treated him cruelly, and Epictetus remained lame for life. A man who had no power even over his own body built a philosophy of absolute inner freedom. When such a person says, "Your reaction is within your power," it is worth listening to. Now, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic. Imagine his position. The most powerful man in the world, surrounded by sycophants, intriguers, traitors, idiots, fools he cannot escape. And this is what he wrote to himself in his diary, which we know as Meditations. At the beginning of the second book, he gives himself a morning reminder. Say to yourself at the start of the day, "I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, aggressive, treacherous, envious, and hostile." And here is the key part. They are all like this because of their ignorance of good and evil, and therefore they cannot truly harm me, and I cannot be angry with a creature akin to me, nor hate it. Let's break this technique down. It is genius. First, Marcus Aurelius prepares in advance. He does not hope that today the fools will take a day off. He knows he will meet them, so they will not catch him off guard. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. Your amygdala, incidentally, reacts much more calmly to the expected than to the sudden. Here, ancient practice and modern neuroscience shake hands. Second, he explains others' stupidity as ignorance, not malice. Remember the fifth technique? Separating the person from the behavior. This is its origin. Third, he decides in advance not to get angry. The decision is made in the morning, with a cool head, and in the evening, in the heat of conflict, he only has to execute it. Another Stoic idea, formulated by Marcus Aurelius: remove the judgment "I have been harmed," and the very feeling of harm is gone. It sounds almost audacious, But think about it. The words of a fool are just vibrations in the air. It is your interpretation that makes them harmful. They insulted me. They don't respect me. How dare they? The Stoics offered a technique that today would be called cognitive reappraisal. Describe the events in bare facts. Not, that insolent person humiliated me in front of everyone, but a person uttered words. Not, they ruined my celebration, but they expressed an opinion at the table. Do you feel the temperature dropping? And finally, Seneca, the richest man in Rome, advisor to the emperor, author of the treatise On Anger. Seneca called anger a brief madness and observed what we now know about amygdala hijack. In anger, a person is not in control of themselves. His main prescription was delay. The best remedy for anger, he wrote, is delay. The first impulse is heavy, but it will weaken if you wait. That very pause, that very count to 10, 2,000 years old, and the instruction has not aged a day. Let us assemble the entire Stoic system as it applies to stupid people. In the morning, prepare. You will meet them today. This is normal. It is part of the world, like rain. Upon meeting, remember the dichotomy of control. Their words are not within your power. Your reaction is. At the moment of flash, take Seneca's pause. Instead of resentment, employ the reappraisal of facts without judgment. Instead of hatred, seek understanding, as per Marcus Aurelius. They are like this out of ignorance, not out of a personal war against you. And in the evening, a short review of the day, as Seneca practiced, where I lost my temper, where I held firm, what I will do better tomorrow. The finale, the most uncomfortable truth. There is one more thing I have saved for last. It is unpleasant, but without it, everything said so far would be dishonest. Recall the Dunning-Kruger effect. An incompetent person does not recognize their own incompetence. That is the whole point. And now for the uncomfortable question. How do you know that the fool in the argument is not you? Every participant in any conflict is certain that the idiot is on the other side. They cannot both be right, but they can both be wrong. Sepola's first law, if you remember, states, we always underestimate the number of stupid people. But this law has a mirror consequence, which Cipolla tactfully omitted. You and I are included in someone's statistics of fools. Each of us has areas where we are that confident ignoramus, with lemon juice on our faces. We just do not see it. By definition, we cannot see it. And here is the test that distinguishes an intelligent person from a stupid one more reliably than any IQ test. A stupid person, hearing all this, will think, exactly, that's my brother-in-law. A classic case of Dunning-Kruger. An intelligent person will think, in what areas am I that brother-in-law? Dunning himself, by the way, said this. The first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is that you don't know you're in the Dunning-Kruger Club. The only defense is the habit of doubting oneself, of checking one's own convictions, of asking, what if I am wrong? Notice, this is precisely what the Stoics did in their evening review. Marcus Aurelius, the ruler of the world, would write down and analyze his own mistakes every evening, not others, his own. Therefore, the final formula looks like this. For the stupidity of others, apply the dichotomy of control. Do not argue where victory is impossible. Guard your energy, hold the pause, respond with questions or calmness. Remember that such a person acts out of ignorance. For your own potential stupidity, apply ruthless honesty. Doubt, verify, analyze your own mistakes in the evening. The first will save your nerves and relationships. The second will prevent you from becoming the protagonist of some video about stupid people. And you know what is most curious? People who seriously practice the second almost automatically attain the first. Those who regularly catch themselves being stupid stop getting angry at the stupidity of others. They know too well from the inside how it works. Irritation is replaced by something like understanding, that very thing Marcus Aurelius wrote about. I cannot be angry with a creature akin to me. In this sense, we are all kin. We all sometimes put lemon juice on our faces. So tomorrow morning, before you leave the house, try the Emperor's reminder. Today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful and aggressive. They are like this out of ignorance. They cannot harm me, because my inner response is within my power. 1 minute in the morning, and in the evening, compare how the day went. I suspect you will be surprised.